Hi, I'm Brian Dunn, and welcome to the most important podcast ever. What makes it so important? It's not about me, it's about you. This podcast is about our ordinary people doing extraordinary things, the moments of resilience, the lessons learned, and the small acts that made a big difference. From retail floors to boardrooms, we'll share the untold stories that shape lives and careers. This week, our guest is Kevin Treanor. And as an old retail warrior myself, I've been in a lot of foxholes with fellow retail warriors. And Kevin is one of those guys that you want on your team if you're building a retail business. I have great admiration for Kevin as a professional, but I have even more admiration for the journey he's had outside of the retail floors that he's going to share with us tonight. And with that, I'm going to bring in my friend and former colleague, Kevin Treanor. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing really well, thanks. And thanks so much for being here with us tonight. You know, um, maybe you could share with the audience your background a little bit and why I call you a retail warrior.
Yeah, thank you. When I look back on my life and if I could talk to my 12-year-old self, and I couldn't imagine the way my life has turned out in a positive way. And it's because of the retail world. Where else can you not know a lot, but really move forward because of people you meet along the way? I remember turning wrenches when I was 17 years old, and then I decided, I can't do this for the rest of my life, kneeling on cold concrete and, getting my first corporate job at Pep Boys and moving up through the ranks. Within a year, I made district manager there, and Best Buy came to town, and, oh, it was great. We had 400 stores at the time, came on as a general manager in training, and that was the best decision of my life. And I got to thank my brother, Joe. We worked together. We were mechanics together. We owned shops together. We worked at Pep Boys together. And then he was always the scout. He went to Best Buy. He worked there for 9 months and said, "Oh, it's okay. You can come on board now." And then I came on board. And like I said, it was the best decision I ever made.
You and Joe were a legendary set of brothers that were both warriors for sure. Geographically, where are you at the time you're turning wrenches?
Huntington, Long Island, New York. I
Beautiful.
I worked, lived, and still live within 2 miles from where I was born.
That's awesome. That's just awesome. And I'm sure you had many chances to move away and to relocate, but you were very stubbornly, that's where you were going to be.
I love it.
What were some of the roles you had in the early days of coming aboard?
So started out as a GMIT, general manager in training. Uh, my first store was Long Island City. Some great stories there. I got that store in 2001. It was probably around March. And we all know what happened in 2001. September, I was in that store, and it was the closest store we had to New York City. And just, it would solidify the company and you as a leader. To me, just the getting a phone call from you, I think you were president of retail at the time, um, and just saying, what's going on? And I told you, we got these emergency service personnel. If you don't mind, I'm going to stay open, looking for batteries and, inventory. We all know Best Buy, your shrink was the biggest thing. And you saying, whatever they need, just take care of them and we'll figure out your inventory another day. And, that solidified it for me, just the company I was working for and the people, more importantly, that I was working for. And, from there, I was a district sales development manager, uh, territory customer experience director, and then district manager, as well as some customer centricity roles. When we did that, I was a carry segment manager, a carry district manager. And the people I met, I just think, like I told you in the beginning, it's a little intimidating on this podcast because I hear the stories and Jim Williams, Mike Treboni, Mike Voss, all these people that I admired and looked up to, and for me to get a chance to be on this with you is just an honor for me.
Believe me, Kevin, all those people you just mentioned look up to you too. And that's a really cool thing. I just want to say one thing before we move away from this. Um, when somebody tells you they were the store manager for whatever brand in Long Island City, that's some heavy street cred in the retail world because those are tough, tough stores in a tough and very, very important market. Very
That,
important
that
market. There may be more Russians in Long Island City anywhere this side of Moscow.
It was one of my favorite places, though, people wise. When you earn somebody's trust and loyalty in a place like that, they'll do anything for you, including the customers. You treat them right, they're going to come back a million times. You treat them wrong, you better run. But
Are there lessons a challenging store like that teaches you that aren't available in other places? Or do you think it's just amplified?
no, it's amplified, but there's lessons. And for me, it was, that was probably my first big job. Even though I was a district manager at Pep Boys, it was cars. I knew it, but that was my first really big role, big store, everybody looking at it. And, when I went in, I was Glenn Ross. That's the manager I was. First place, you get a Cadillac. Third place, you get fired. When I left there, I was Moneyball, the right person in the right place, do the right thing at all times. And it taught me lessons I don't think I could have learned anywhere else because they're not afraid to post you up. The associates I had there would get in your face if you did it wrong, and you're gonna do it right, or they're gonna let you know. And I think I enjoyed my time there because it made me so much of a better leader. I used to tell people, we're going to win no matter what. If I got to carry you or drag you across the finish line, we're going to win. And they taught me that it's not sustainable. Sustainable is to let everybody else win with you, teach them, and let them run side by side with you. And that's how you truly win, and that's sustainable. And I don't think in other stores people are that outgoing to tell their store manager exactly what's on their mind and what they need from you. So I enjoyed it.
I think other places are maybe a little more passive aggressive. And I think places like LIC are aggressive aggressive. And
Yes.
if you can learn those lessons there, then it's almost like dog years. Each year there counts as 7.
Yes, without a
It-
doubt.
yep. So what was next after your Best Buy time?
So after my Best Buy time, I went to PetSmart, and leading people, but it was all about animals. And you had dogs, we had hotels, we had grooming. You learn a whole different level of compassion because people will feed their animals before they feed themselves. And
I know firsthand.
especially when we went through COVID, they were coming out no matter what. And we got deemed necessary. So we were able to stay open, thank goodness, and it
An
was the best
essential
years we had.
service. Yeah.
And yeah, it was a good company. And it changed a little bit. And I decided I was going to try retirement. And I was 58 years old. Uh, and like I said, Best Buy, PetSmart put me in a good space. Me and Janine were financially secure. And I realized can't retire because I was like 100-year-old guy. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd grab a cup of coffee, I'd go sit and watch the boats. Then I'd go see whatever friend was working and want to nap at 3 o'clock. So that lasted about 15 months.
Did you yell at kids in the neighborhood that were walking on your lawn?
See, I didn't have to because I live on a dead end and 5 of the houses are family. So that makes it a little easier. I got to avoid that part.
I got you. I got you. Because that's when I knew, hey, Bri, you better start a podcast or something because you can't be yelling at the kids
Right.
on the lawn. Um, So you tried retirement for a while, and then what?
Then I just went to Vitamin Shop to get out, little health nutrition.
Yeah.
Uh, Nice little company. It reminds me of Best Buy in the beginning. Everybody's so nice. The CEO, when I started, sends me an email, welcome me aboard. She was glad I took time to think about the job. And everybody, I'm telling you, hundreds of people in the company going on LinkedIn and welcoming me aboard. And that's what
Cool.
I loved about Best Buy in the beginning. Everybody knew your name. They knew who you were. They actually cared who you were. And, that's something that's rare.
Absolutely. Did you find at Best Buy and then at PetSmart and then at what was the last one? I'm sorry, the
Vitamin Shop.
Vitamin Shop. That's right. For some reason, I wanted to say Vita Center, and I knew that wasn't right. Did you find that the lessons traveled nicely to each new opportunity? The things you had learned?
Yes, I think I got better as I went along. And I think about, we talked about some tragedies that happened in my life, but I think it made me not only a better person, but a better leader. Because when you get to see the side of people that care about you and what you're going through, it makes you feel the same way when somebody else is going through something. And I'll share a story about my brother, Joe, when he got cancer when we were working at Best Buy. And he got really sick, and the amount of support that the company gave, even when we had problems, like I remember calling you, Candy was upset. We got a letter from HR saying they're going to put him on a leave. You know, it didn't mean anything in the scheme of things. He was in hospice. He only had a couple days. It didn't mean anything, but you understood. And when you got in touch with someone in HR, they understood what it meant to his wife and his family, just saying he was on a leave. I remember getting that fixed. What company does that, right? What company takes their time to care so much about someone's wife that they reverse something when it's really insignificant in a way?
Joe Trainer, Kevin Trainer aren't the kind of leaders that go on a leave, no matter what battle they're fighting. So,
I appreciated that.
no,
And
it's bringing it all back up. I very much so. And what year did we lose Joe?
oh nine,
Um, yeah. Brutal. So you've dealt with a lot of tragedy, Kevin, and I don't know if you can talk about it, but if you'd like to, love to hear Harley's story.
yeah. So it's funny growing up. My kids, any Best Buy they pass, we go on a road trip to Virginia Beach. Every Best Buy. That's where Daddy works. Yeah, I don't work at all of them, but yeah, they knew that ticket, that sign was,
Sure.
where Daddy was. And I had Harley. It was 2001. I was in Long Island City, and I remember she never crawled. She only scooted on her butt. And we used to have these four big circles in each corner of the store on the
Oh, I
racetrack.
remember. I remember. Yeah.
She would just scoot in circles around that circle when she came to see Daddy. And she was an old soul. Like I had two daughters, and I was blessed. One was an old soul that just cared about everybody and questioned life and questioned, what file says, Daddy, does everybody get presents? Because what about the ones that don't? Can I give half of mine to them? And then the other end, I had Madison, who was a brand new soul. Woohoo! I'm going out. I better get 14 presents if Paulie got 14 presents. And great kids growing up. And then unfortunately, we've always had a boat. I live on an island, literal island. They've been on boats since they were 3 years old. They learned to swim. I said, you want to go in the water with your cousins? Jump in the water and learn how to swim. Here's a noodle. They were swimming by the time they were 5. And in 2012, it was 4th of July, and it was raining a little bit. And we just got a new house that they picked out. And we were sitting there by the pool, and can we go out on the boat with everybody? Stop raining. I'm like, sure. Why not? That's why we have a boat. So unfortunately, the weather kicked up. We had a bunch of people on the boat. The boat capsized. Harley was in the cabin with David, my nephew, and Victoria, a friend of hers, and we weren't able to recover. I dove in water. I tried to get out, couldn't do it. Coast Guard was there. They refused to do anything. It was just a cluster. The towboat was there, and he said, "Oh, I have tanks I could dive in." His tanks were empty. It was probably, it was the worst time of my life, but the cluster of things that just went wrong. And I remember you go in the water. When I dove in the water, what was in my pocket? My phone. And you don't think about those things, but this is 10 o'clock at night. They got some of us to shore. Now it's 5 in the morning. They finally recover Harley from the boat. I get to go to the hospital, finally say my goodbyes. It's 8 in the morning. The first thing I think about is I call Jane, the admin, and explain what happened. I wouldn't be at work. By 9:30, there was another district manager at my house with the telephone activated so I could call everybody, there to do whatever I needed. You know, Terrible, terrible thing, but the amount of support, love, and just people being around you meant the world to me. And it's funny, I have my family and I love my family. It's a big family. And I include my Best Buy peers as part of my family, especially after that, because those were the people that were there when I needed it. Sorry.
I don't be sorry. It's unimaginable. And that support and love that you got in that moment was a straight up reflection of everything that you had done for people. You're that kind of person, and that comes back to you in those moments. And that's the beautiful thing about it. None of us, none of us can appreciate the horror you went through in that moment and in the moments that followed, the thousands and thousands of moments that have followed. And yet, I admire so much your strength going through that, but I even admire more the positive beacon you are now. How does that happen?
You see things that you never thought of, right? You live through the unimaginable, but your takeaways are what people did for you. And how could you not do for other people that maybe aren't going through as huge a tragedy as it was to me? They're going through their own tragedy, which to them is just as big. How do you not help them when all these people showed up when you needed them? And that's what it made me a better leader. Personally, made me a better friend, and professionally, made me a better leader because I probably didn't have as much empathy as I do now, because of those things. And there's things happen, right? We can't control those. The universe has its reasons, and these things happen, but we could take away something positive. And that's what I did through those tragedies. When I think about Joe, it's the positive is what family member works together for 30 plus years and doesn't fight and want to kill each other.
Right.
And the people that were surrounding me then, and then with Harley, the people that 6 months later say, "Hey, I haven't talked to you, but I knew you had a lot of people around in the beginning. How are you doing today?" And in my mind, it made me realize that when somebody loses someone, I always just shoot them a note. I'm like, "Hey, I'm here if you need me." And that counts 6 months from now when nobody else is around. And it made me realize that those are the important times. When you have 400 people surrounding you, whatever their tragedy, it's easy to lean on someone. But life goes on, and those people, not in a bad way, move on, and you're alone. And that's when they really need the people around you.
That's the hardest thing, isn't it? When the crowd goes home and there you are alone with your thoughts. I I'm not comparing our circumstances. When I lost my wife with our battle with cancer, our mutual friend Jimmy, your story. We all come out of these things, I think, better people, more empathy. I care more. There's a Dickens quote that starts, "I was better after I cried." And I think it's just so true. And it's such a brutally hard way to get there. I I admire you so much, Kevin, and the strength with which you carry yourself. Um, and I'll tell you something else about you and Joe. To get out and have a Pepsi be around you two guys, hysterical. There was not two better senses of humor going. Um, so, how is your life now?
I love my life. I can't change what happened, but I look back and there's no wonder that life has been good to me and the strength I have because I think back on my mother. My father walked out when I was 2 years old. There's my mother with three boys, 2, 5, and 6, and didn't blink an eye. Raised three boys, always had a roof over her head. She could have been the CFO of any company the way she managed. Okay, I got 90 days on the telephone. If I pay the electric today, they won't shut the phone. I can move. The way she moved money around and raised three boys that all did well, with in life and are all doing well. That's where I got my strength from. And it took me 48 years to find my soulmate, Janine. And that came from tragedy. Janine lost her brother years ago in a tragic accident in Boston, in Massachusetts, right outside Boston. And after I lost Harley a year later, we've been friends since 1986. And, it took till 2013 where we actually went out on a date. It was so funny. You're 48 years old and you're going out on a date and taking someone to dinner. And, it turned into she's my wife. And, this is, it's funny how things turn out. And with every tragedy, something comes out of it. Someday I'm gonna pass away and I'm gonna figure out what the universe, what it thinks about and why it does what it does.
I am so supremely happy that you're happy, Kevin. You deserve to be happy, and I think that's wonderful. And I can't thank you enough for the time. Our time has just flown by today. Thank you for sharing this deeply intimate story, and I just know it's going to offer a positive outlook to somebody who's going through a really tough thing. I
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you. I've never said it enough. What you did for me in my career. I remember meeting you at a meeting, and you just Trainer. Joe's your brother. That booming voice and the way you took me under your wing, and I wouldn't be where I was without you either. And my family appreciated everything you did.
I got nothing but love for you, Kevin, and Joe upstairs and Harley upstairs, and God bless you. And I hope we'll talk again soon.
Oh, we
Thank,
will.
thank you so much. I know we will too. That's it for this episode of the most important podcast ever. A huge thanks to Kevin Treanor for sharing his story from deep in his heart. And a big thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with someone who might find it meaningful and who wouldn't find it meaningful. You can watch and listen on our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on social media. I want to thank the crew at Streetside Studio 7 and our hosts here at Deja Blue House of Coffee in beautiful Alexandria, Minnesota. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week. Take care.